I wanted to start off with a short introduction about the organizations bringing you this program tonight, and that is the Herring Ponds Watershed Association and Wildlands Trust, who I am affiliated with. Tonight's program is the National Marine Life Center Rehabilitation, Science, and Education with Kathy Begzebski, and it is November 4th, 2020, but I'm sure you knew that already. At Wildlands Trust, our mission is to work throughout southeastern Massachusetts as a regional land trust to conserve and permanently protect native habitats, farmlands, lands of high scenic value, high ecological value, and we do this in order to keep our communities healthy and our residents connected to the natural world. So you can find our preserves all across the region. We're in over 40 towns. There's a list of 20 or more preserves on our website that you can drive to, park at, and hike for a couple miles or more. So I definitely recommend that you check that out. Our preserves are free and open to the public always. We have about 10,000 acres in our service region that we protect. So that's pretty good for a regional land trust in a very highly developed area to have 10,000 acres that will never be developed. And once we have that land, we have a stewardship department. You can see Eric pictured on the top there. That's our stewardship manager. And they take care of the trails, they take care of the properties, keeping everything safe, improving habitat for wildlife, keeping water clean, all kinds of things. So our trails will be in really good shape if you do visit. We also do community engagement and education for both youth and adults. That's where I come in, programs like this tonight. We coach an Envirothon team at Brockton High School. We do summer service learning programs for teenagers, and we do public programs throughout the year. And our collaboration with the towns in our region and other nonprofits and state agencies makes all of our work possible. So thank you to our partners. And where you come in are our members. So members are just anybody who wants to join Wildlands Trust. It's $50 a year to start. You can always give more. And the membership benefits give you discounts to Wildlands Trust paid program, as well as discounts to partnering retailers and farms across the region. And 100% of your donation goes to helping us fulfill our mission to protect land across the area. So helping us protect more land. I will be sending everybody a follow-up email, and there'll be links to the membership that you can join online. And I will also include links to the Herring Ponds membership program as well. So our partner tonight, Herring Ponds Watershed Association, is co-presenting this program, and I'll let Dawn take it from here.
There we go. Hello, everybody. I see a number of people from Herring Ponds Watershed Association. I'm pleased to be here, and sitting next to me is Jerry, my wife, who arranged the program. We're excited about this program, but I am also excited to tell you about a little bit about the Herring Ponds Watershed Association. We are largely consisting of an ACEC area of critical environmental concern. It comprises 4,450 acres and 11 ponds, although our main focus is Great Herring Pond, Little Herring Pond, and Elbow Pond. Our mission statement is to preserve and to protect water and land. And we are an all volunteer board of directors. We have over 250 members and over 400 on our mailing list. Next slide, Rachel. Brief history, we were founded in 2007. We have been monitoring water quality in our area continuously since 2008. And we've established a very effective partnership with the Department of Marine and Environmental Affairs, headed by David Gould in Plymouth. Our main contact there is actually Kim Tower, who's a technician. We've been working with her for quite a while on water quality. And next slide, please. We've had a number of accomplishments in the last several years. My wife Jerry does educational newsletters and arranges these presentations. Except for this year, we've done herring counts, and we've had a booth in the Herring Festival, in which people were encouraged to go through a herring mock-up. We have written stewardship guides. We're in our second edition to stewardship guides, telling people how to take better care of their environment. We do E. coli testing for our residents at the major beaches. We have had a cyanobacteria bloom for the first time this year in recent memory, and some people's memory goes back about 80 years. That was quite an experience. We've helped Plymouth purchase recharge land, the Condon Tract, 53 acres southwest of our pond. It was a big event. We raised a little bit less than $40,000 for Plymouth. And this year, town meeting approved our water quality plan. The expenditure of Plymouth is going to be around $70,000 for that. Thanks to your help, we've raised $10,000 to make that happen. And the water quality plan will give us an idea of where our pollution is coming from, which sources and how much from each are contributing to the pollution, and most importantly, an idea of how to remediate these problems and reduce the amount of pollution. We're hoping that this is going to lead us not into more cyanobacteria blooms and not more algae blooms. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Beth Sobolov will give the introduction to our speaker, Kathy Zebski, who I am looking very much forward to hearing about animal rescue. So Beth.
Thank you, Don. I'm on the board of the Herring Pond Watershed Association and the National Marine Life Center. So I've been working with Kathy for the last 6 or 7 years. So I'd just like to tell you a little bit about her. Kathy joined the National Marine Life Center as the president and executive director in March of 2005. For the previous 7 years, she led the stranding department at the Marine Mammal Center in Sausalito, California, where she was responsible for rescue operations along a 600-mile stretch of the California coast. Then from 1997 to 1998, she served as program manager for the Georgia Coastal Management Program and helped achieve a federally approved coastal zone management program for the state. Kathy has volunteered for a variety of marine mammal projects, including animal rehabilitation crews at the Marine Mammal Center, dolphin research and training, and whale research at the Kewalo Basin Marine Mammal Laboratory in Hawaii, the Marine Mammal Stranding Network in North Carolina, and several dolphin monitoring projects. She graduated magna cum laude from Augustana College and received her master's degree in coastal environmental management from the Nicholas School of the Environment at Duke University. Kathy serves on the board of the Bourne Financial Development Corporation, the Cape Cod Technology Council, the Massachusetts Marine Educators Association, and the Philanthropy Partners of Cape Cod and the Islands. Additionally, she serves on the Town of Bourne's Wastewater Advisory Committee, the Main Street Steering Committee, and the Advisory Committee of the Environmental Technology Program at Upper Cape Cod Regional Technical High School. So not only does she know everything I think you could ever ask her about seals and sea turtles, she's also very involved with the local community. And that's Kathy.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. And I hope you will join me in welcoming Kathy to tonight's program.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Beth, thank you for that kind introduction. When I hear that, it just looks like somebody who doesn't know how to say no. But I'm glad. I was so grateful that Beth connected us and to have the opportunity to speak with two fantastic organizations, the Herring Ponds Watershed Association and Wildlands Trust. You're doing some amazing work, and everything that you do also helps the animals, all the animals. Just a little bit about the National Marine Life Center. We are an independent nonprofit marine animal hospital and science and education center. We have a threefold mission. The core of our mission is rehabilitation. So right now we have permits to care for stranded sea turtles as well as seals, and we'll talk more about that this evening. The second part of our mission is science. So we use the opportunity of the animals coming through our facility to learn more about the ocean and what these animals are telling us about the conditions in the marine ecosystem. And then the third leg of our mission is education. We take what we learn through our rehabilitation and science programs and share them in a variety of educational contexts. So why here? Why Cape Cod? Cape Cod and southeastern Massachusetts is really a stranding hotspot. Each and every year, there are anywhere from 400 to over 1,200 sea turtles that strand, primarily on Cape Cod. There are 50 to 75 seals that strand just on Cape Cod alone, and usually over 200 dolphins, porpoises, and whales that strand. And we're a stranding hotspot for a couple of reasons. One is this geography of Cape Cod and the fact that the Cape actually forms sort of a natural trap. The second element is the natural history patterns of the animals that are found here. There are a lot of species of marine animal species that come, that are more northerly, that come down south as far as Cape Cod, and a lot that are more southern species that come north as far as Cape Cod. So it's also an area of mixing, and then the different animals have different natural history patterns that in some ways lead to them getting trapped or stranded in other parts in and around Cape Cod. So what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to go through the three main taxa of animals, the three main groups of animals that we deal with at NMLC, or that we will deal with, tell you a little bit a very little bit more about their natural history, talk about why they strand, and eventual rehabilitation. So the first group of animals I want to talk about are cetaceans, and these are dolphins, porpoises, and whales. And I'll start out by saying that the National Marine Life Center does not yet have capability to rehabilitate dolphins. It's in our long-range plan. We have a marine animal hospital, and we have expansion plans to be able to one day in the future add some dolphin tanks to that marine animal hospital. But here on Cape Cod, we are really fortunate to enjoy over 18 species of cetaceans, of dolphins, porpoises, and whales. We have both toothed whales, like this common dolphin in the left-hand photo, and we have baleen whales, like these right whales in the right-hand photo. And just a comment about right whales. Right whales are currently the most endangered marine mammal in the Atlantic Ocean. There are unfortunately fewer than 400 left. They were hunted to near extinction in the whaling days for a number of factors. They were fairly easy to hunt, and unfortunately their populations have not rebounded. We were starting to see an uptick when I first came here 15 years ago. Over the first decade, I was really excited to talk to people about right whales and say, well, there are fewer than 300 left, there are fewer than 400 left, and that number kept climbing. But unfortunately, over the last several years, the number is really falling again. And that's largely due to fishing practices and to boat strikes. So fishing practices, the animals get entangled in fishing line and fishing gear, and vessels, the animals have a hard time in the ocean hearing the sound of the vessels. And with the increase in commerce that depends on oceans, the animals are basically caught in the crossfire. So there are a lot of great people working on these issues, but it's really critical, and any efforts or support that you can give to right whales is very important. Now, I will say we will never have a right whale at the National Marine Life Center. These are 60-ton, 45-foot animals, so they exceed even our planned capacity. There are a number of reasons why cetaceans, why dolphins, porpoises, and whales will strand here in Massachusetts. A lot of natural causes, diseases, parasites, injury, even geography and storms, malnourishment, old age. Oddly enough, actually, very few wild animals actually die of old age because it's a rough environment out there. Sometimes there are younger animals that can get separated from their moms. And in fact, I was helping IFA with a dolphin rescue once where that was the case. Then, of course, there are human influence reasons, harassment of dolphins. Thankfully, we don't have a big problem of feeding dolphins here, but that is a problem in other parts of the country. Entanglement, ingestion of plastic, and plastic is a huge issue, ship strikes, pollution, toxins, and climate change. There's another factor with cetaceans that is really key and unique to Cape Cod, unique in the United States, really, to Cape Cod. And this is something called a mass stranding. Now, I'm sure that you've seen in the news, on Facebook, maybe you've even been out on the beaches of Cape Cod and seen a mass stranding, like this mass stranding of pilot whales. And a mass stranding is a specialized phenomena where more than one unrelated animals strand ashore at approximately the same time and approximately the same place. And I say approximately because it can happen over, it can happen tightly clumped like in this picture, or it can happen even beaches that are even a couple miles apart or spread throughout a marsh like this out at Wellfleet. There are a lot of theories for why animals mass strand. Here on the Cape, they have been mass stranding for hundreds of years. And some theories are that they're following prey or that they're following a sick pod leader. There are geographic factors, but the common points seem to be two main reasons, or two main groups of reasons. One is the geography of the place where animals mass strand. And throughout the world, there are these mass stranding hotspots, and they all share that. I don't know if I can actually show it on a Zoom call. The screen isn't big enough, but they share that natural trap, the hook of Cape Cod, for example. They also have broad tidal flats and a quick tidal turnaround. And places in Australia, New Zealand, and are some other hotspots. And then you have the species and the local species that are in the area. And there are certain species that just because of their biology, because of their behavior and natural history patterns and social patterns, that makes them more likely to strand. Behaviorally, or on the natural history side of it, the animals that mass strand, like pilot whales and common dolphins, tend to be highly social. So there is that element to follow the leader. They tend to be more pelagic, meaning more open ocean. So they can usually be found far offshore. And what that means is when they come close to shore, whether it's because they're following prey or a sick pod leader or escaping storms or for whatever reason, these animals haven't really encountered a tidal change before. So they don't know, unlike a very coastal species like a bottlenose dolphin, these offshore species don't understand what happens when they feel the tide. And so the tide goes out, it goes out really far, really fast, and the animals are left high and dry. So that's really the specialized phenomenon that is cetacean strandings. Now, like I said, we do not yet have cetacean stranding facilities. It will require an expansion of our existing hospital, but we do have planned 2 large tanks, a 30-foot and a 30 by 36-foot tank that will be enough to take care of up to 2 pilot whales. And those pilot whales are 2 to 3 tons. So that will definitely be quite a project, but very important. So we'll never be able to take all of the 200 that strand, but if we can take a few, maybe we can learn more about the species, help those individuals even as we learn more. Going into the next group of animals, seals or pinnipeds. And we are fortunate to have 4 different seal species that regularly show up here in Massachusetts. The 2 on the left side of your screen, the harbor seal and the gray seal, are year-round residents. And I say they're here year-round because there are individuals that are present year-round. That said, they don't exclusively make their home here. So a gray seal that is one day on Cape Cod might be a few weeks later up in Maine or even Canada. These animals utilize the entire Gulf of Maine ecosystem. The 2 animals on the right, the harp seal and the hooded seal, are seasonal visitors. We only see them usually in the mid to late winter into early spring. And these are part of a group of seals known as ice seals. They are, their normal habit is on the ice fields to the north, and to a certain extent, they're dependent on that that ice habitat for their natural history and defense and rest and breeding. So they, similarly to polar bears, are definitely impacted very heavily by the melting of the polar ice caps with climate change. So these are our 4 species of seals. A lot of reasons why seals strand, and this list will look very familiar to you from the dolphin list. Seals can strand for disease, and a lot of the primary reasons for stranding have to do with a variety of diseases, maternal separation, etc. They could also strand because of ingestion or entanglement in plastic. Again, lots of different reasons that we cause these animals to strand. When a seal is admitted to the National Marine Life Center, there's a whole process that we go through. They are admitted. We are a hospital, so we go through a similar process to what might happen to your pets going to a veterinarian. Or even to a human going into a human hospital. Our challenge is we don't know as much about these animals that we know about our pets, dogs and cats, and unfortunately they can't speak to us. So we have to go through a lot of different procedures, but we do an admin exam, we take weights and measures, we have a charting process, so we maintain all the data in both paper charts and an online version for our veterinary team so they can keep track of what's going on, and then go through the daily care. And it can take anywhere from 6 weeks to over 3 months, 3 to 4 months to fully rehabilitate a seal. We do occasionally have a seal that's here for longer, but that's the normal range. It depends on species and age class and condition. When the animals first come, they're initially tube fed. If they're dependent pups, they're fed a formula based with a milk-based formula, and then they get a fish-based formula, and eventually they're taught how to eat. A pup can be fed as often as 5 times per day, so it's definitely an investment of time. Eventually, our goal, of course, is to release the animals back to the wild. The previous photo was a harbor seal pup. This is a harp seal. This year, this is Matinicus. He was our first adult male harp seal. And he weighed over 150 pounds. He was a big boy. We had to build a special crate in order to get him to the beach for release. Absolutely beautiful. And again, this is one of those species that's dependent on the ice. When they come down here, because they're not in their natural habitat, and whether they come because they didn't have as much ice habitat to the north or for whatever other reason, one of the challenges is that when they're stressed, and that can be from physical reasons or because of people's presence on the beach, they often will ingest sand and rocks. So if you do see any seal on the beach, please make sure to stay at least 150 feet away. For seals, social distancing is good and appropriate, and you want to stay 150 feet away. So speaking of seals, I just want to share Montauk's story. And Montauk is a male harbor seal, initially stranded back in May up in Maine, and was rescued by our friends at Marine Mammals of Maine. At that time, he was illegally picked up out of the water by a well-meaning individual who thought that he was abandoned by his mother. Now, harbor seal moms will leave their pups on the beaches while they go offshore to feed. Sometimes the pups will swim. They can swim from birth. But often a harbor seal pup on the beach, as much as it might look helpless, is one that is just waiting for mom to come back. Every year, we unfortunately run into challenges. And this year, I think 75% or more of our harbor seal pups had been brought to us, had been separated from their moms because of human interaction. Excuse me for a moment. So Montauk was brought to us. We were able to rehabilitate him, and his first release was about 3.5 months later. In September, we released him at Westport Beach, or at Horseneck Beach down in Westport. Unfortunately, he wound up restranding shortly thereafter. He showed up on some of the beaches in and around Westport, eventually made his way into Rhode Island. And we did eventually receive permission. We're at the hospital. We don't have permission to rescue animals from the beach. So if we do rescue, we need to have special permission from NOAA. We partner with other organizations that are like the ambulances to our hospital. So unfortunately, we tried to keep him out there. We worked with some of the local groups, and as he moved south, and some of the beachgoers were very good about trying to watch him and monitor him and keep people away. But unfortunately, Montauk, people couldn't have their eyes on him forever, and he did allow people to approach. And when people approached, they did not do the right thing. The kindest thing, well, the least invasive thing they did was take selfies, but there were some reports of him being kicked and otherwise harassed, people just getting way too close. We did make the decision to pick him up again, brought him back to National Marine Life Center. He'd lost about 7 kilograms or about 14 pounds. And then we re-released him a month later, a few weeks ago, basically. Unfortunately, there too, he was not successful. He restranded and then was hanging in and around the Sandwich Boardwalk basically for a week. And we worked with the International Fund for Animal Welfare, the rescue agency on Cape Cod, to monitor Montauk, to try to be out there and keep people and dogs away. Unfortunately, again, he had extensive harassment by people and dogs getting just much too close. And he also, along this short period of time, managed to get entangled in a hook and some monofilament line. So Montauk is currently at the National Marine Life Center, and we're in the process of evaluating our options with this animal, but he will likely not be released again. A few things, often despite our best efforts, not often, once in a while, despite our best efforts, you will have an animal that just does not adjust to the wild. Unfortunately, in Montauk's case, that whether or not he initially would have had that tendency, people, both a well-meaning and a not so well-meaning public, didn't leave him alone, so he didn't really have that chance. So that is Montauk's story. And at this point, I just wanted to pause and see if there are any questions in the chat. Rachel?
Awesome. There are a couple questions. Martha was wondering, do harp seals have a magnetic sense of direction?
I don't know. That's a really good question. Not that I'm aware of, but that doesn't mean that they don't. I would not be surprised because many animals do. And it's definitely thought that many dolphins and whale species have some sense of magnetism. Sea turtles definitely use the localized magnetic fields in the minor magnetic fields of the earth to navigate back to the beach or near the beach where they were born. I just haven't explored that with seals. So that sounds like something I'll have to look up. So sorry, Martha, that's a definite I don't know on my part.
And we have one more. Ramona is wondering which species of seals we are seeing out on Monomoy around the boats near Chatham.
On Monomoy, around the boats near Chatham, most likely you are most often going to see gray seals. They are the largest seal species that we have. The adults can be up to 600-700 pounds as an adult male, and one of their nicknames is horsehead. So if you see an animal seal sticking its head out of the water and its its head looks kind of like that. Like that big, the Roman horse, that kind of big, not a sculpted horse head, but just a big horse head. That is a gray seal. Now we also do have harbor seals that hang out there as well, and they hang out in mixed groups. And the harbor seal, these two are harbor seals. And they are going to have a more rounded face. It's going to look more dog-like, and they are a much smaller animal. The adults of harbor seals are only about 250, 300 pounds max, and both males and female harbor seals are about the same size.
They're adorable.
Yeah.
Steve wants to know if the National Marine Life Center is open to the public.
Thanks for your question, Steve. We are normally open to the public, although our hospital is off limits to the public. This is a hospital. We do take our responsibility to wildlife seriously, and so most of the time the hospital is off limits. In our visitor center, which in the normal year is open during the summer and during school vacations, we have live cameras inside our hospital, and so you can come in and get a nice view as to what's going on. And so you can often see things like feeds or procedures and things like that. And you can learn more about us at nmlc.org.
Great. We'll take one more question right now, and that is Ramona, again, who thought she saw a seal in the canal last weekend and wants to know if that's possible.
Oh, Ramona, thanks for that question. Yes, although I never see them in back of the National Marine Life Center. We are located on the canal, and I very rarely see them there. But the ones I've most often seen in and around the canal are harbor seals. I'll often see them on the Sandwich side or on the Cape Cod Bay side, kind of at the mouth of the canal, and often around the tide change, but definitely harbor seals in particular. But it's possible for any seal species to go in and out and through the canal. But I've definitely seen harbor seals around there.
Awesome. I think we'll save the rest of the questions for the end. And thank you so much for taking those.
All right. Well, thanks for those questions. So I wanted to also talk a little bit more about sea turtles, and especially now, I kind of arranged this for the end because it is sea turtle stranding season. And yesterday, the first 7 sea turtles were rescued by our friends at Mass Audubon Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. There are sea turtles on Cape Cod, something that many people are surprised about because this isn't necessarily the climate that you think of for sea turtles. So you tend to think of them in more temperate and tropical environments. But there are 4 species that have been documented regularly in Cape Cod. The Kemp's Ridley is the smallest of the sea turtle species, and it's also the most endangered sea turtle. And it happens to be the sea turtle that strands most often here on Cape Cod. What we see are juvenile sizes. So even though it is the smallest, as an adult, it will be larger than what's portrayed in this picture. But when they come to us, they're usually about 8 inches or so, often weighing less than 10 pounds or even less than 5 pounds sometimes. We see loggerheads. These are the second most frequent to strand. It's a larger animal. We do see them as juveniles, but in this case, these juveniles are big babies, anywhere from 50 to well over 100 pounds. And loggerheads are named for that very thick neck that they have. We see green turtles, and green turtles have a really amazing shell. They're named green turtles because their fat is green. They're green on the inside, not necessarily on the outside. As an adult, green turtles are the only herbivore of the sea turtles. As a juvenile, which is where the age that we see them here, they're also about the size of the Kemps, and they're more omnivorous as a juvenile. And then we also see leatherback turtles, and the leatherbacks are the only ones that don't generally strand for the reason that these hard shell turtles strand. Leatherbacks are often victims of entanglement, but the leatherback is the only soft shell turtle. Its back is more leathery rather than the hard scutes of the other animals. And it is a larger turtle. It is a huge reptile. Their shell alone is more than 6 feet, and their flipper span can be over 8 feet wide. So they are a tremendously, tremendously large animal. Now, I will say before I go into cold stunning a little bit more, these turtles can strand for all the same reasons that we talked about with dolphins and seals. They can get diseases, they can get parasites, they can get separated or well, not separated from their moms because they are always on their own. But there are a lot of different reasons why the turtles can strand. There are a lot of human-caused reasons. Turtles are particularly vulnerable to human pressure. They will eat almost anything, and a lot of their natural food, plastic in the ocean and trash in the ocean, looks like a lot of their natural food. So they are particularly vulnerable to that. They can get boat strike and a lot of different things. Most of the time, specifically here on in Massachusetts, the primary reason why sea turtles strand is hypothermia. So we see turtles at a very specific point in their natural history. As juveniles, these little turtles, well, they're hatchlings, and then they grow in their first few years to be about the size that we see here. They would normally spend that time in the warm ocean currents. And in the case of the Kemps and some of these others, they would basically float around the Gulf Stream. And they'll feed at Stellwagen banks in the summertime. They have to return south by autumn because these animals are reptiles, so they're cold-blooded and they need to be in warmer water. But some number of them do become trapped in Cape Cod Bay. And as they get trapped in Cape Cod Bay, kind of once they come into the bay, it's almost hard for them to make it out, because if you can see from this map that we saw a little bit earlier, the temperature in the southern part of the bay stays warmer longer. So it sort of keeps pushing them back south. But as we all know, and as is happening now, the temperature will eventually get colder and colder and colder. And these turtles that haven't made it out of Cape Cod Bay will get colder and colder and go into severe hypothermia called cold stunning. And for these animals, it's when they strand, they are in critical condition. So sea turtles on Cape Cod, the bulk of them are rescued by Mass Audubon Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary. They have an extensive search and rescue program. Maybe some of you are actually volunteers with it. And they patrol all the beaches from Sandwich to Truro looking for these turtles, because as cold as the turtles are in the water, once they wash ashore, they get even colder. So the sooner that somebody can get out there and stabilize them and bring them into triage, then the better chance those turtles have. Turtle rehabilitation. Now, this is the National Marine Life Center's second year of an expanded role in sea turtle rehabilitation. We used to only take turtles that were stabilized, so we were like the ongoing rehabilitation hospital, but not the emergency room. Now, effective as of last year, we are also serving with the New England Aquarium as an emergency room for turtles. So that means we can take them right off the beach, and as critically ill as they have been when we got them after being stabilized, they're even more so when they come right off the beach. So there are a few steps in sea turtle rehabilitation. These animals come in and sometimes they're colder than 55 degrees body temperature. So you warm them gradually in a specialized device, a veterinary incubator, and we've got racks here so we can warm a bunch of them at once. They are practically comatose when they arrive, so you have to gradually swim them, starting only a few minutes a day. You support them in water until they can start swimming on their own, basically until their metabolism picks up again. And that water, if the temperature today, if the turtles are at 55 degrees on day one of their rehabilitation, then we have to keep that water at 55 degrees. Day two, when we go up to 62 degrees, the water has to be 62 degrees. So it's all has to be very carefully monitored. We do regular exams and treatments, and also veterinary exams at least once a week. We have been doing a lot of telemedicine this year, but our veterinarians will be coming in for periodic exams with the turtles. We will then, as they ideally start to recover and become stabilized, they start to be able to swim on their own and eventually can be left in water 24 hours a day. So then it becomes ongoing care, and it can take anywhere from 3 months to 3 to 9 months is average, although we have had a turtle for over 3 years. So it can be a very long prospect, but in the case of these critically endangered animals, we all think it's well worth it. So there's feeding, and then the animals, once they can eat on their own. The next step is, of course, release. You will think this does not look like Cape Cod, and you are right. And the bulk of our turtles are actually released down south in Florida. So we do have a very short window during the summer when we will do local releases on Cape Cod, never from on an inside beach, always on an outside facing beach or a southerly facing beach. But the water temperature has to be about 70 degrees. So otherwise, we work with a lot of other organizations, and sea turtle strandings and care and rehabilitation and rescue and release really does take a whole village of people helping. But we will work with others to transport them south, where they'll be released back into the ocean. Just to tell you species, this is a loggerhead. There was a smaller loggerhead named Bruce that we had last year and just released them this spring. And this is a Kemp's Ridley. So I also wanted to share with you a case story of Tudis. And Tudis was a Kemp's Ridley turtle that stranded last November. He was juvenile and was rescued by Mass Audubon Wellfleet Bay Wildlife Sanctuary, suffering from cold stunning. He also had abrasions and some respiratory issues, which is really super common with these animals. Once he was stabilized, about a month into rehabilitation, he developed a very serious bone infection called osteolysis, and he developed it on at least 2 or 3 of his flippers at the joints. And this is a frequent secondary complication that we see from the cold stun event. During cold stunning, their whole body shuts down, so their bones and their joints haven't been getting the blood flow that they need, and it manifests usually a month or later into rehab, where because the blood supply was cut off, you get a very serious bone infection. The bone actually starts to erode. It can they can recover from this. It just takes time. And that's one of the reasons why sea turtle rehabilitation can take so long. But I'm pleased to say that Tudis was successfully rehabilitated. And this is the bottom picture is a picture of his release. We did an offshore release on the other side of the vineyard in early September. So why does all this matter? I mean, we've got a pandemic, we've got, a lot of angst in the world these days, a human pandemic. Why should we care about animals? I have a sense where I'm preaching to the choir here because, you all definitely care about animals and the environment. But these animals really are important for a lot of reasons, and both for the individual animal, in some cases they're endangered species, all of the sea turtles, but they also provide really unprecedented opportunities for science and to learn more about the ocean and to learn more about what's impacting the ocean, because what can impact a turtle or a seal or a dolphin in the ocean is also something that can impact people. So if you don't care about these animals for their sakes or for, the sake of a lot of other reasons, they're important to the ecosystem. They're an important part of our natural heritage. It's important to also realize that they serve like canaries in a coal mine, if you will, big slippery canaries in a vast wet coal mine. So before I go to questions, I just wanted to say, please do visit us. I have our website up here at mlc.org. We are on Facebook. We do a number of live programs there. We have been having those programming since the pandemic, and our website will have a current schedule. We also do scheduled education programs, and this year we're taking those virtual. So if you have a classroom, we're happy to come into your classroom. We do have a cost for that because it costs us, even if we're not there in person, it costs us to put it on. But it's a lot of fun. We love working with kids. And we do accept volunteers. Most of our volunteer opportunities are actually in person because we had to keep going with the animals, and we expect a really big sea turtle season. Another way to help us and all the organizations that you're listening to tonight, Giving Tuesday is a special day where we will be trying to raise money to help in this new role of sea turtle triage and sea turtle emergency care. So do look for us. We're on Facebook, Instagram, now TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter, probably a few others, but please do look for us there. You can see this more in the recorded program, but I did throw some numbers up here for who to call in your area. There are a number of different people. One thing to note right now, there is no marine mammal no organization that responds to marine mammals on the beach in the greater Plymouth area. IFAW will respond up to Plymouth. We are sometimes called out to help, but the number to call is NOAA. And there are a few other numbers on here. This, by the way, is a gray seal. This is one that stranded at the beginning of this year on the vineyard. And that white coat is a birth coat that they have until they're weaned. Lots of ways to help. First and foremost, take personal responsibility, recycle, use reusable products, reduce your use of single-use plastic, reduce or eliminate if you can, turn down the heat, up the AC, buy local, everything that you can do to take responsibility for your own personal footprint on this planet. Also take community responsibility, participate in an organization like Wildlands Trust or the Herring Pond Watershed Association or the National Marine Life Center, or all three of us. Vote and participate in local cleanups, and definitely global responsibility. The voting is so important, as we know this year, especially support conservation nonprofits spread the word, use social media or traditional media or one-on-one to spread the word about these causes that are important to you, and use your economic power. Don't buy products with reduced packaging, buy products that support environmental causes, that the economy talks. And so that's one way that you can vote with your wallet as well. So before I close for questions, I just wanted to play a short video. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. What a great presentation. Well, let's see. Jack wants to know, do you work with local fishermen regarding the competition they perceive for seals fish?
Yes, there's definitely, that's definitely a social issue here on Cape Cod. We have been participating in a collaboration called the North Atlantic Seal Research Consortium. And that is a group of scientists and conservation organizations and fishermen and fishing organizations and managers like from NOAA that get together periodically, usually at least once every year or two, to share information, to present the latest data, and to try to address some of the solutions. And that's really how we've been participating so far by participating in those arenas. I will say that we do have people just sort of on a one-off. We've got local fishermen who have helped us out with even bringing like live crabs, people who had a shellfish grant and fishermen who had a shellfish grants. Shellfish fishermen who brought us some live crabs for our turtles and different things like that. So over the years, we've also been really honored with a number of closer partnerships with either individuals or small groups, local groups of fishermen.
Awesome. This is also a question from Jack. Do you only work with saltwater turtle residents?
We are permitted only for sea turtles. Now, I will say that we have some conservation projects that we participate in with freshwater species. We participate in the Mass Wildlife Head Start program for red-bellied cooters, which is an endangered freshwater species, and we also participate in the Barnstable County program for head starting diamondback terrapins. And then we have 3 permanent residents that we were asked to provide a permanent home for them by Mass Wildlife officials, the biologists at the Massachusetts Division of Fisheries and Wildlife Endangered Species Division. There's a diamondback terrapin that was originally found by researchers out at Wellfleet, Mass Audubon, and was deemed unreleasable because of extensive injuries, but still still a perfectly healthy animal, just her rear legs are paralyzed. So we were asked if we could provide a permanent home for her, and we've been happy to do so. And also we have 2 permanent resident box turtles that were confiscated from a home by Mass Wildlife officials where they were victims of the illegal wildlife trade. So, we don't have the permits to rehabilitate terrestrial and pond and freshwater turtles. That locally would be either Wild Care or Cape Wildlife Center or New England Wildlife Center. But we definitely have a few efforts with our native turtles as well.
That's great. Don was wondering how many of your patients you tag for future reference.
How many patients? We've been rehabilitating. Our first animal came in 2004, and it's been a slow growth process, but we have handled over 600 animals. I think sometime I have to calculate the poundage to compare with my friends at Cape Wildlife Center and Wild Care, who have many more animals, but a lot of them are really small. So. Yeah, we passed our 600 animal mark this year.
That's amazing. I have one more question in the chat from Beth, and I'll just remind everybody to continue to put your questions in the chat, or if you would like to ask a question in person, you go to the participants tab. That will bring up a list of everybody who's in the meeting, and at the bottom right, there will be a little icon that you can hit that says raise hand. So go ahead and do that if you'd like to ask a question in person. And Beth wants to know, has the pandemic affected your rehab efforts?
Definitely a good question. We have, of course, like everyone here, been touched by the pandemic. We have kept operating a portion of our mission throughout the pandemic, even with the close downs, because animal work was considered an essential business. That said, we had to make sure that we could do so safely. So we implemented a lot of additional safety protocols. Some of them were natural for us. Our volunteers were already used to wearing masks when working with the animals. So it was a little bit of a stretch to wear them whenever interacting with other people as well, but everybody's doing pretty well with that. Many of our volunteers had to step away temporarily. Some of them are starting to come back, but just because they were in high-risk demographics groups. And so we've been doing what we could to keep them engaged and give them some opportunities. And our science mission for a while, we do have operate what we think is the country's only diagnostic marine mammal parasitology laboratory, and that closed temporarily because the individual who runs it was not an essential business, and she also had some personal childcare issues she had to stay home for. Our education program, we continued throughout, but we took it virtual, and we've been not offering in-person programs. Initially, we did a lot of virtual programs right off the bat. Over the summer, we were able to do some in-person programs outdoors. And then we did for 2 months or a couple of months, we were able to open up our visitor center, our Marine Animal Discovery Center, on a limited basis. So we're pretty small. So we had to, for the first time, charge people and we ran it with individual appointments there. But that was a fun opportunity for us to kind of get to know guests a little bit more personally and interact with them more on a one-on-one basis. So we noticed on the animal side, we did notice what seemed to be more people on the beach finding seals, more people on the beach interacting with seals, fewer beach managers and people that might otherwise be policing the beaches. Even as people were locked down from school and work, they did get outside, and many states allowed that. And so there was more seals stranded because of human interaction. And going into sea turtle season, we're expecting expanded numbers, in part because of reduced capacity at some other organizations just with all the pandemic related procedures will limit some of us with on-site staffing. So we're all kind of splitting the load a little bit more. And at National Marine Life Center, we're expecting up to 3 times the number of turtles than we've ever had before. So we normally have 30 to 34 turtles, and we're preparing for as many as 60 additional turtles beyond that.
Wow.
And it could be more. We don't know.
Wow. From a natural perspective, Joy was wondering, how many seals do you think are killed by sharks each year?
That's a good question. I don't know the exact answer. I know that seals do form a major prey for the older sharks, older white sharks. And so that is a part of their natural diet. But as far as overall numbers, I don't have a good number there. We see a handful of shark bites that come into our center live every year. This year we saw, I don't know that we saw that many. There was one animal that was pretty significantly injured, but we weren't sure if it was a shark or if it could possibly have been injuries from another seal. So that one wasn't clear. We do also see both evidence of canine bites, and whether or not that's coyote or dog, we don't know.
And one more question in the chat here from Martha. Do you find turtles or seals stranded on Plymouth beaches or just Cape Cod?
They do find turtles and seals that strand on Plymouth beaches. Turtles aren't as commonly found in Plymouth. If you do find a turtle on the beach, this is probably the only instance in which I'll advise that you carefully handle the turtle if it's safe to do so. But Mass Audubon is the lead, although in Plymouth it would actually be New England Aquarium. But Mass Audubon advises that you, if you can do so safely, pick up the turtle by the sides of the shell, and you would hold it like, this is a bad example, but like you'd hold a hamburger, pick it up, move it above the high tide line, cover it lightly with seaweed or rock, allowing its face to breathe, mark it with debris or some way to mark it on the beach, and call either New England Aquarium or Mass Audubon. Seals are regularly found in the Plymouth area. One of our recent seals stranded there in May, but not a huge number. It's more occasional.
Okay. And then a follow-up question from Martha. She wants to know if injuries from outboard motors are common.
We see them. There were a couple that we've seen over the years. Some of them we weren't sure if it was shark or motor. It could have been either. But we do know that there are some. It's not as common as other areas. People are well, we also have, just with our habitat, I think we don't have the density of boat traffic that they do in some other areas. And so on the animals that we deal with, we've seen a handful, but not that often.
All right. Are there any more questions? You know what I'm going to do is give everybody the ability to unmute themselves. And if you maybe didn't know how to do the hand raise feature and you want to hop off mute and ask a question, you can feel free to do so. Or just to say hi.
Hi, Kathy. Thanks so much. This was wonderful.
Oh, I enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you all for tuning in.
Yes, we've taken our grandchildren a couple summers ago there.
Oh, good. Oh, thank you for saying that. I appreciate that, Chair.
We actually do have a hand raise from Inga. Inga, go ahead and ask your question.
Do seals ever go into roads?
Yes, that's a great question. We had a seal last year. Was that Hagrid?
Hagrid.
We have a naming theme for seals every year. This year it was lighthouses. Last year was Harry Potter. And he was found in the road in New Hampshire. Actually had come up off the beach and was found behind a seafood restaurant in the middle of the road. So the local officials were able to protect him, and until the Seacoast Science Center was a rescue agency that took care of him and then brought him to us. I don't know if it was Hagrid. Now I'm blanking on who it was. I will think of it after this meeting, but yes, they do come in the road. Thanks for that question.
Anybody else?
When will this be available to view from anybody? Is on the Wildlands Trust website, or?
Yes. So I'll send that link as well in the follow-up email, but all of the programs are on wildlandstrust.org/wildlands-online, or you can just go to our homepage and scroll down to the bottom. And I will just have to do some editing. So I'll have it on the website either tomorrow or the next day. So by the end of the week for sure.
Great. Thank you.
You're
Very
welcome.
much.
Thank you, Robin. Nice to see
Thank you, Robin.
I also will just put in a plug for our next program that we're doing
Yes.
with Wildlands with Malcolm McGregor, talking about describing 5 hikes in Plymouth on November 15th, is it?
2 weeks from today, the 18th.
2 weeks from today, yeah. And you can register on the Wildlands Trust website also for that.
Yes.
This is Jack. May I make a quick comment about seals?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay, I used to live many years ago. I lived on Cape Cod Bay, and there was one spring one time I looked out and I saw 99 seal heads. There were both harbor seals and grays out there. And as you know, the tides are pretty extensive up in this area. And there was one small seal that was stuck on top of a rock that was probably a good 5 feet off of above the rocks that surrounded it. And my daughter, who was very young at the time, was going to walk out and say hello to it. And as she got probably within 100 feet, this seal got so freaked out, it was about ready to jump off that rock, probably to injure itself pretty extensively on the rocks below. So these seals are not normally, they don't like to have people around. It's if you see a seal out there, give it a lot of space, give it a lot of room, or else that seal could definitely injure itself trying to get away from a human.
Thanks for that, Jack. Absolutely.
I'll just throw in another plug too for National Marine Life Center. We have a great shopping page. If you go to nmlc.org, you'll see a link to the shopping cart to buy some gifts. Maybe it's almost Christmas, and we have a 2021 calendar that's beautiful and has a lot of pictures of the patients that we've had over the past year. And also we have a fun thing, which is you can adopt a seal, right, Kathy?
Yep.
Or you can do a name a turtle. And naming a turtle is a really fun gift to give to a kid because they just absolutely love it. So
Thank you for that. Yeah. Adopt an animal. It's perfect in time for Christmas or for the holidays, and
Do they
definitely
get a
look at.
picture? Do you send a picture to them of the animal?
Yes. So the normal adoption is $35 plus postage and shipping for a seal or a sea turtle. The naming adoption for a turtle is $500. So I will say that takes a little bit more of a gift commitment. And you get a a certificate that says your animals has a nice photo and it says the story. You get an adoption certificate personalized to the person of your choice, and you get a plushie. And I'm happy to say that we are transitioning our plushies to a brand that does not use any new plastic. So they don't use plastic eyes. They have stitched on eyes, and anyway, it's plastic free, or at least new plastic free. So we're really excited about that.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy, for that wonderful presentation, for sharing your work with us, and for everything that you do, and for presenting to us tonight. We really appreciate working with you. Thank you to Herring Ponds Watershed for partnering and getting in touch with you, bringing you on, and thank you to everybody for joining us on this crazy night. You came onto your computer and joined us for a little feel-good talk that I think was really educational and just totally took me out of the moment and put me into something that hopefully we all really care about. So I really appreciate it, and we would love to have you back.
Thank you so much. It was great talking with all of
very
you,
much.
and keep up the great work.
You too.
Thanks,
Thank
Kathy.
you.
Thank you.